Hello, the game has started. It's me to go first. I don't have a bingo. I have two scoring tiles in the C and the P. I can play Colin. The C is slightly more bingo-y than the P, but the P and the L together have some synergy. I suspect there's a variety of similar moves, so I'm not going to spend longer looking for a better one. That's awful, and that's probably bad enough to change. I'm struggling to think of a play which would justify not changing, and the main reason is that whatever I play, the rack leave's going to be horrendous. The W and the X don't go well together, and the duplicate G is bad in itself, but the G and the W and the G and the X also have negative synergy. If I do change, well, it's a case of changing all 7 or retaining the X. And although the X is regarded as a good tile, it's also a non-bingo-y tile. Right. That's 16 points for my opponent. I could play Wox at I3 for about 26 points, but then the rack leave of GG LMP is awful. I'm just looking to see if there's a way of playing off 3 tiles. I suppose Glow is possible at K2. 16 points, keeping GMPX. Well, I think that's on the margin of changing, so I am going to change. And I'm going to retain the X because the spot above the I is pretty useful, so I could have a 3-letter play there for 30 or 40 points, and there's also the O of colour right next to a premium square. Well, I draw the Z, but what that does give me is Zax across the top of Colin, and that's exactly what I was looking for, or had in mind, when I retained the X. It's a long way from a bingo, but it's a balanced strat with 3 vowels, so I'm looking to score well this move and next go probably without bingoing. Great, my Zax spot remains available. I note that my Z can also go in front of the O of colour, and for future reference I note that colour takes a Y as well as an S after it. Now, my opponent has provided a hotter spot for my X after LA. So I could simply, I could play Flicks down here, which gets rid of the F, which wasn't a great tile. That's 56 points, which is good. And the retained tiles are pretty balanced and good as well. Now I'm playing Flicks instead of Flocks because the O goes better with the Z. I'm just pausing in case it would be worth retaining the F to go in front of Lax. But I don't think it's worth doing. So I think I'll go with this. Pretty good. A well-balanced rack, and if I played off just ZO, I would have a great or a really good 5-tile leave. Nowhere fabulous for my Z at the moment. Lax has taken out the full value of the spot next to the O of colour. My opponent's challenged, so that he loses 5 points. I've now got a 40-point lead. Colin only takes an S after it. I'm pretty sure I don't have a 7-letter bingo here. I do need to consider the N of Colin and the R of colour, which I've done, and still don't see a bingo. Now, as well as ZO, I've got ZHO on my rack. The board does not have a lot of opportunities, which is fine because I'm ahead and my opponent may feel the need to open the board up and thereby give me first dibs at any hotspots. I do have Razoo in column 5, making of 33 points, keeping EHS. And I'm wondering about, well, just playing ZO or ZHO in row I. Probably not good because it's retaining 3 vowels. And I have the potential to have a really good rack leave if I play off the right tiles. Just looking at the board in case there's some lane I've missed. Well, I guess column 3 is available for my H in front of Oi, so I could play Whore down here, but that retains the Z. And a score only in the mid-20s. My opponent's taking a while with his move, so he may be close to a bingo. I'm looking in row G to see if I've got a play across the top of Colin beginning with F, which places my Z on this second double letter square. Can't see such a play. So at the moment, if my opponent changes, I'm probably looking at Razoo. But that doesn't feel great or obviously optimal. Ah, well, I do have a better play. I have Aroz in row M through the final letter in colour, which would place the Z on this double letter square. 48 points. Keeping EHS. So it's actually playing off the same tiles as Razoo, but for about 15 more points. And it's creating a hotspot for my H underneath the O of Aroz. Well, my opponent's taking a jolly long time with his move, just 14 minutes on his clock left. What I can do is click here to see what information he's publicly sharing, which is not very much. Number of unfinished games, medium. That's not great. But not a lot of other information about him. Okay, he plays 23 points. He's blocked my Aroz spot, which is annoying. What has he created? Well, he has created a spot for Res. 32 points. That would retain AHOS. Not great. Do I have anything beginning with the D affixed? Dozers doesn't quite reach the double word square. So this is what I was looking at. 33 points. Pretty good. There may be a bingo here, or an 8. I do have a few floaters to consider. The R of Razoo, the N of Colin, the D of Flixt, and the A of Razoo. Onto an S, I would have fetishes. Onto a T, I would have heftiest. But I can't see anything with the available floaters. I've got fish. Tree fish, not good. So at the moment I'm not seeing a bingo with this rack. I do have scoring tiles in the F and the H. I could play FEH parallel to Razoo for a good score. I don't think Hefties is good. If it was, it would play in column 9. My opponent's provided a P. That doesn't help, doesn't go well with the F and the H, and it blocks my spot. And although my F can go to the left of the Y, I haven't got anything to go in front of the P or in front of ER. My F can also go after ER. So what to do? 14 minutes on my clock. I certainly would like to play off the F. It's my least bingo-y tile. So I could play Fey for 18 points, keeping heist. And that is pretty good. The rack leaves good. It also goes well with the N. If I draw a G, I've got the ING ending. I'm keeping open column 9 for my S. But am I missing something? I've got TA and ER to consider for 9-letter plays. Can't see anything through ER, and the TA is much less likely. Well, this doesn't feel great. I have got the F for going in front of lax, but nothing goes in front of oi, and my E doesn't go in front of O, but I could play if in this spot. 23 points, so 5 more points. Well, there's not very much between those moves, and if that's the case, I like to retain the better rack leave. Just pausing in case there is a better spot for my F. I note that it could go here. If and if for 18. Yeah, I'm going to go with this. Or am I? I could play heft down here. Well, that's not so great. It's creating a T hook, and I won't have one. And it's only 27 points, only about 9 more points. Well, a 5-letter rack leave is quite strong, so I'm reluctant to play a move unless it's clearly better. Well, I have reservations about this, but I'm going with it. Great. That looks pretty promising. Through an E, I would have headiest. 38 points for my opponent. He is now just 9 points behind. I've got handiest in column 8. Great, I have a bingo. It feels like quite a long time since I last had one. It's not a massively scoring bingo. I don't think there's an anagram of it, and even if there is, I don't think it begins or ends with an N. So, what about bingos beginning with D? Can't see anything there, and I don't think there's anywhere else to consider. Well, unless there's a 7 here that I've not seen, which could go in row N. So, is there a 7? Well, not one that's coming to mind. There are a few candidate plays, but they're not convincing me. I think I'll get this down. There's a lot of tiles to come, and I've used up about half my time, so I don't want to get into time trouble, especially as I haven't established a commanding lead. Handy as 63. Not great. Way too many vowels. Onto an R, I would have echoier, which would play off 6 of my tiles. 25 points for my opponent. Good, that's not a massive score for him. So, how can I sort this rack out? I certainly want to play off an I. Not too bothered about the duplicate E. I've got the CH for score, but if I play off both the C and the H, I'm leaving myself with no consonants. Not easy. Not many lanes to consider. I'm looking at plays beginning with the S and the T of handiest, which can reach the double word square. Can't see anything beginning with the T. This is a sort of rack which can burn a lot of time, and I don't want to do that with only 10 minutes left and 46 tiles in the bag. Well, I could play just hoy, which would retain a consonant. It's not a great play. Now, hioi is going to score more. I think hioi takes an S, so I may well have a better spot for this. So how much was this down here? 18. Hioi here, 16. So I'm dropping 2 points, but I'm taking out this really good bingo lane in row O if hioi does take an S, and I note that both blanks and 3 S's are out there. I'm creating a hotspot in column 8, but the only way my opponent can score well off that is by putting a C next to the H, and one's been played and the other's on my rack, so this is a selfish hotspot. My opponent may have a 4-letter play, simply putting a vowel there, but that's not going to score as much as putting a premium or a high-scoring tile on this double-letter square. Well, I don't have a 4-letter play ending in C, and I don't have a great rack. V, P, and C do not have good synergy. I do, however, have a 60-point lead. And I could place my C next to this H with a play in row D, so I could play cheap, which is still available. My opponent gets 26 points, which isn't a great score, or isn't a huge score. I don't like my opponent to have big scores at any time, but it's especially not when I've got a slender lead and a poor rack. Hog takes nothing after it that I've got. The problem with playing cheap is that it's burning both my E's and it's keeping the V. But Chevet is also good. And that's a much better play. 34 points, good score, turning over a lot of tiles, which is good because I'm ahead and there are 2 blanks out there. Yeah, I'm going with this. Great, I draw one of the blanks, and I think wine sap is good. Can't see anywhere for that right now. But there may well be another bingo available here. Wok takes nothing in front. Weaponize is good through the right floaters. That would need 2 of them. I've got the T of handiest and chevet to consider. I've got the S of handiest. I'm wondering about Spawnia. Don't like that. Colour takes a Y and an S. Well, wine sap doesn't quite fit there. Now, I don't have a lot of time. I've only got 7 minutes. There are 32 tiles in the bag. I'm going to run through the alphabet, and I'm mainly I'm looking for 7s and 8s. Although that's quite difficult. It's much easier when you've got one floater in your mind rather than trying to juggle a number. And there's the ing ending. And I've also got wing and AGE. That looks promising. Right, my opponent has bingoed and taken out a floater, provided a new floater in the N, which isn't helpful because I've got one of those. And he hasn't provided anywhere for wine sap. Spawnia is still available, but I'm just not sure of it. That is the wine sap move. Does it have an anagram? Can't see it. It's wiretap, not wine tap. So do I try Spawnia? Just don't feel great about it. So where can I play off my W? I could play Tor across here, 18 points, creating a new bingo lane, although obstructing 2 others. Now I do have the ing ending. Six minutes left, 25 tiles in the bag. 1 point lead. Actually just doing nothing. I like this 5 point lead. Yeah, this doesn't feel great, but I'm short on time. Great, I'm sure I have a bingo here. I've got Springer through the S. I've got, I had preening through the N. My opponent only scores 24, good. He hasn't opened any bingo lanes which use the triple letter square. Do I have a play beginning with the W? I don't think there's one ending in the W. I've got Spearing and Springer. I've got Tapering. Spearing's better. I'm just, again, still thinking about one beginning with the W because that would score a lot. Can't see one there. I'm going with Spearing. Spearing better than Springer because it places the G on this double letter square. Spearing, 74. Great, I draw the second blank. I have nhandus and unhands. Not totally sure on that. Great, it's a phony, fabulous. Now, I've really taken out all of the bingo lanes with spearing, which wasn't my intention, but it is something I'm glad about. Row N is available for a 7-letter bingo with the S in exactly 4th place. Well, I don't think I have one of those. I've got the W, but it's not in a great spot. I've got the UN beginning, so something like undrawn. Sundrawn. Well, I don't think there's something there. My priority is to play off the U and the N. I'd like to bingo again because I've got the blank. So if I play Guan, 15 points. The N is not particularly helpful, so I'm not really creating new bingo lanes here. But I don't want to go out of my way to create bingo lanes. And this is taking out a useful spot for my opponent. 3 minutes on my clock, 13 tiles in the bag. This probably isn't a great move. But only 2 minutes left. I think a better move would be one which plays off the D as well. So Juan somewhere. This is quite a hot spot here. If a Q could go there for a bingo-y score. I'm going with this. Time is running out. Ah, great. I have Bondsman. How fortunate. Onto that N. The N is blocking abdomens, or I say Bondsman stays good. Fabulous. Wow, this is a stroke of good fortune. The N is not a particularly useful tile in last place. Bondsman, 89. Great, and I draw the Q with the U. I can't get it as a 5-letter play now, and if my opponent plays, he'll be emptying the bag, so that hotspot probably won't be to my advantage, but I've got a 150-point lead. This game is mine. I've got Qualm on my rack. Ah, well, thank you to my opponent. Qualm goes. $75. Now, I can see what my opponent's got. I've got 1 minute on my clock, which is loads. Does my opponent have a playable bingo that I should be blocking? Well, I don't think so, and I think Qualm probably is doing the blocking. DV. I didn't give any consideration to whether I'd be stuck with the V, but I don't think I had any alternatives to Qualm. However, I should have spent a little longer satisfying myself of that. 1 minute left. So I've got div through the eye of spearing. I've got V up here with just the V. That's my opponent blocking div. So I've got my V double E spot. Dev is also good. No E's available. So, and over is good, which would score more. So that's 10 points, and then I definitely do have multiple places for my D. But it'd be a shame to miss an out if there is one available. 46 seconds left. Just scanning the board for places for DV. Can't see anywhere. So where's best for my D? DWE is 4. Do and D, 6. Right, I've got 30 seconds left. So I'm looking down the board row by row with my D, finding something better. 18 seconds left. No, so where was it? Here, I think. Do and D. 6 points. Just wait for my opponent to formally end the game, which he does. And the final score, 325 to my opponent, 533 to me. A winning margin of 208 points. So a massive, massive win. Right, let's see what I missed. And it was me to go first. I played Colin. Well, yeah, all these moves here are equivalent to Colin. Colin scored more, 4 more points, but Klopp has the advantage of keeping a vowel and providing fewer floaters. So very little between those. My opponent's rack, he plays colour, and this was my awful rack. I changed, and walks for 26 is just not good enough when you're looking at that rack leave. My opponent's rack, he plays A, which was great for me. I had flicks for 56. Now, Zax was still available for 1 more point. I didn't really spend long enough thinking about that. I was distracted by the X getting tripled rather than doubled. But there's probably not a lot between these moves, or flicks is better, because the Z goes really well with AOH, whereas the rack leave of FHIO is bingo unfriendly. And you're just not looking at as high a score as you would be with the AHOS rack leave. So I'm happy with flicks. My opponent's rack, he spent a very long time on this move and then played flixed. He blocked my arrows. And I played Rizzu. Yeah, and the next plays which score a lot more are burning the S, so I like Rizzu. My opponent's rack, pretty horrible. He played Payette. Now, this is where I think I may have missed something. And I didn't. Hefty's not good. Heft, that was a play I briefly thought about but didn't like. The front hook or the rack leave. And I went with Faye for 18. Yep, that's fine. My opponent's rack, he played Jeep, and now I had Handiest. Wow, it was the only bingo. I'm surprised. This was my opponent's rack, he played Wok. And now... Okay, so I played Highway for 18, retaining CEE. I could have got 6 more points for Techie. So Techie and Seich were the 2 plays from the S&T of Handiest, which reached the double word squares. But they retained no consonant, but they scored 6 more points. So these top 3 moves are probably fairly comparable. Horrible rack for my opponent. He played Grant. This was my rack, and I played Cheven, also available. Nice rack for my opponent. Notelets, yeah, that was the only bingo, so a good spot by him. Now, was Spawnia good? Yes, it was. Okay. That's slightly annoying. I played Torp for 18. And although it is annoying to miss a bingo, the rack leave after Tor was so good that in equity terms, there probably wasn't a huge amount between Tor and Spawnia. Spawnia scores 58 more points, but I'm retaining the blank, which is worth 25 to 30, so the equity advantage of Spawnia may well be as low as 10 points, or 10 to 20, which is still a loss, but nothing like as bad as missing a bingo with low probability tiles and no blank. Horrible luck for my opponent. He plays a back, and I now had an abundance of bingos. I played Spearing for 74, N1. Okay, so there were bingos pluralizing colour, but any such bingo would have opened up a 9-timer in column 1, so I liked Spearing. It took out a lot of bingo lanes. Horrible luck for my opponent. And now I have hand-dos and done hands, nowhere to play them. Oh, wow, Nefandus, A2 through EF. What a fabulous find that would have been. Well done if you spotted that. It's not a word that I've studied, but it would be a fabulous word to play. Instead, what did I do? I played Guan, which didn't feel great. But none of the rack leaves down here look good, and they all burn the S, so Guan, not so bad, but certainly not as good as Nefandus. Horrible rack for my opponent. He plays Vig, and now I lucked out with Bondsman. My opponent's rack, does he have a bingo? He doesn't. And he opened up a bingo lane, but it simply provided me with an opportunity to play Qualm for 75, which is clearly best. Now, this is my opponent's rack. He still doesn't have a bingo, despite bingo-y tiles. He plays Item. And finally, nearly finally, I don't have an out, and over looks best. Does my opponent have an out? No, he doesn't. He plays Is. And finally, I'd for 7. Ah, I could have got 1 more point. Yep. Okay, so I got 6. That was the end of the game. And yeah, well, fabulous to win by 200 points. So I hope you enjoyed watching that, and I will see you next time.